but opioids, they cause death because they kind of slow everything up and they stop breathing. People die from opioids from respiratory depression.
And that's probably a horrible way to go too, dude.
Well, I'll tell you the truth, they probably don't even know because, they probably comatose out first and then they stop breathing.
Just like black out. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you know somebody who's, they think is, just kind of, it's hard. It is hard.
Yeah,
but,
it really is. They're trying to help though, like with the halfway homes and things like that.
Yeah, what do you think? Like, do you feel that drug addiction is like a disease, or do you feel like criminal? That's exactly what he was saying.
I think it becomes a disease, but I think to start off with, you make the decision. You don't, when you first start taking said drug, you don't have addiction, and you are. When you take something, you know what you're taking. You know what you're doing. I mean, eventually, I think it does become a disease because I think, once you get in that cycle, it's almost impossible to come out without any help. Mm-hmm. So I think it definitely becomes a disease, but I also think that that person, whoever's, does have addiction, I think at some point they need to say, I need help for sure.
I messed up. Take the responsibility. Take the ownership.
Those clinics in like San Francisco where they give you needles, like clean needles, so you can take them and you have a comfortable place to shoot up your drugs. Like those places are very conflicting because let's say they want to put it in your neighborhood. They are helping drug addiction. Like if you view it as a disease, obviously I think you're like, yes, those clinics help people get through addiction. They give them clean needles so they don't have to share. They give them a comfortable spot so in case they do overdose or anything, they'll be immediately taken care of. But then again, other people believe that this is a criminal problem and you're giving those criminals a place to go shoot up their drugs. You know what I'm saying? Like
it's almost like creating more money, right? Criminal activity.
Sure those clinics are, I want to say, privately funded as of right now. But if they become more commonplace, I'm sure tax money will be used to pay for it. And of course, people are not going to be happy because it like, let's say on the streets, like obviously if you have a bunch of crack or heroin addicted or even opiate people who are all over the streets, like needles and stuff. Like I heard in LA highways, they tell people never to walk under those underpasses because there's needles that can poke you, stick you, and they're full of like all those diseases, HIVs, Hep C, and it's just like, I don't know, like if you have those clinics set up around communities, more and more drug addicts, I assume, will go over and use that and not necessarily dump their needles in the street but I don't know, like it's so conflicting because it's.
So this is my 2 cents. I 100% support the clinics you had mentioned.
Halfway homes and stuff?
Yeah, and the reason being, you said that a lot of needles, contain so HIV is actually, if you have unprotected sex with somebody who has, AIDS, the chances of you contracting the virus are crazy low. However, if you're getting that needle through
it's like 90%.
I think it's like yeah, it's I don't know if it's 90, but it's definitely up there. It's
a huge gap, ginormous gap. I heard about that stuff.
So, and that's actually one of the main reasons why I'm for these homes is because you're giving them clean needles. So you are decreasing the rate of all these infectious viruses and all these, needle-stricken, diseases, and
I'm sure it decreases death too. Like it decreases death.
It does. But I mean, so you talk about taxpayers and all this stuff. Well, how many people are taking opioids unsupervised and they go to the hospital and they don't have insurance or they don't have anything like that? So I mean,
another
you know what
point.
I mean? And it's people with HIV. A lot of times. A lot of these people don't have insurance. They don't have. Exactly. So I mean, it's gonna. To me, it's gonna repay for itself eventually, and you're decreasing the rate of all these infectious diseases. Not only with that said group, but I'm sure people have sex with people who are not taking these drugs. So I mean, you're not only decreasing the rate of that, but you're also decreasing the rate in the general population as well.
That's something I didn't even think of though, like about the hospitals and everything.
Dude, HIV, and I think it was also Hep C, is going to have like a massive spike because of that, because mainly drug users and stuff. It's not necessarily sexual.
Well, nowadays, actually, I mean, not to say that HIV isn't like a crazy huge deal, but now we have drugs that are, it's actually called ritonavir, which is, it's made.
It does a lot.
It does a lot to where, you really should, if you're on ritonavir and you're taking it, every day, as it's prescribed, as it says, you really shouldn't shouldn't,
die or get
There's
worse.
no
it shouldn't progress.
Yeah.
It shouldn't progress to AIDS because I mean it's pretty effective. But I
Right,
mean,
because it starts off at HIV and then it gets
AIDS
into
is
like
so AIDS is a
well,
disease state. HIV is like the cause of it. So
it's like the actual viruses and HIV is like the actual virus.
What the virus is doing is it's actually infecting your
immune system, right? You're like
your T cells. It's either your B or T cells. So your B cells recognize antigens. Your T cells kill the antigen. So it's one of those. I want to say it's the T cells though, the killer cells. So I mean, what HIV does is it basically totally kills your immune system. So I mean, you don't die of HIV. You die
of all the infectious diseases.
You die of something else, but it's you weren't able to combat that.
Fight it.
Yeah, your body can't fight it. So. Like I said, I'm 100% for those groups. Oh, and I remember what I was going to say. So those groups also can be used as a means of intervention for saying,
they're not there to support your addiction. They obviously want the end goal is to get you off that.
You
stuff.
use that as a junction.
Very good point.
Use it as a junction to say, hey, I realize you have addiction. You refer them to, you refer them to specialists. You refer them to, a whole bunch of things. You teach them, especially, with heroin and stuff. It's you can cause overdose, but there's actually drugs. It's called naloxone, and you can watch videos. I mean, people are in a deep comatose. They look dead,
passed out, pretty much.
You inject this, and I swear to God, it's like a magic.
It's
like a magic.
Narcan, right? Is there a difference between that?
So that's like the brand name. So naloxone, naloxone.
So
I've heard it's bad though. Like I've heard, like for example, you've heard of like the Juice WRLD, him dying.
Yeah.
I've heard like in that class, I took like a substance abuse class, and she said that Narcan is good, but it can come back. Like the effects of Narcan only last for a little bit, so you like immediately need to go get help. So they're right? Like you were saying, the receptors, like the Narcan takes over the receptors from whatever drug you took, but it will fade away and you'll go back into overdosing, right? I think that's what happened to Juice WRLD because he took all those drugs. They gave him Narcan and he came back to it for a little bit. But if you don't immediately get help, or I'm not sure, like I almost feel like some of those people are already done because they've already ingested. I'm not sure, right? I have no idea, but the Narcan, like that would just suck though. Let's say you're like overdosing, they give you Narcan, you come back to it, and then it's just like.
So the way it works is, so opioids, they heroin, Vicodin, anything that's an opioid. The way it works is it hits your mu opiate receptors. So it activates. Let's say it activates your mu opiate receptors. Well, what Narcan is doing is it's basically competing for that same spot.
Oh, okay.
So say it's like a lock and a key.
I see.
Say your opiate is like the key, and it's unlocking this lock. Mm-hmm. Well, Narcan is kind of a better key where it'll kind of push the opiate off that receptor, but it doesn't activate it like opiates do. So it totally reverses it. It holds its place basically. But as you said, Narcan can wear off. So that's why if you see somebody that's in overdose and somebody gives them Narcan, you call an ambulance because they will, once that Narcan wears off, they're going right back to how they were. So, and that's why I kind of lost my train of thought there.
That's just so crazy, dude. Like that just seems it obviously Narcan's there to help. They do help. I'm assuming like the odds
it's a life-saving drugs.
Yeah.
I'm sure plenty of people have been saved because of that drug,
exactly. But man, like it just seems so wild that you can take like some kind of substance and then you're back to it. And all of like, man, it just,
it's like,
then again, those clinics help, dude. If they give you those then they're there. Like if they see something, they'll probably give you the Narcan and then immediately, like you said, call help or.
Well, I mean, so the clinics do, you got to be careful though leaving the clinics because if somebody relapses, they're at an extremely high,
like chance
to OD because when people relapse, they're saying, oh, well, I'm going to go back to the same dose of whatever drug that they were taking when their body, when they were taking that regularly, they had built up tolerance.
Mm-hmm. And that makes perfect sense, too.
And so it builds up tolerance. And I remember in class they were telling us that an average like person that uses regularly, abuses, their dose would kill us. because their body is built up that tolerance. So if we were to take that dose that somebody else took, we would die. So I mean, but they're tolerance is not something that sticks with you. Your body does not, you know, it goes down. So.
It's just like anything, like working out, or you know, you work out for so long, and then you're gonna lose the muscle if you don't work out, and then you know you try to do the same thing that you were doing before, and you know you're not gonna be able to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean that makes perfect sense too.